Okay, so part two. This is what we're going to talk about now is continuing to model using polygons, okay, and using some different tools that allow us to change the structure, okay. So let's just you guys follow along with me if you'd like. Drop in a cube, and let's go over to the segments of the cube and just make this like 3 by 3 by 3. So we give this several polygons to play with. And once we have that, and again, if at any time you want to add a fillet or any of those things, you can definitely do that to it. I'm just going to work with a standard cube right now to show some examples. And then let's make this editable, so we can play with some of those polygons. Now, sometimes when you're working with an object, like for example, let's say a keyboard or remote control or something that you want to have a regular, consistent placement of the buttons, right, that are going to kind of come out from the center. You can easily just select, let's just select a polygon right here on the side. Make sure you click on the Polygons tool. And then if you go up to Structure, scroll all the way down, you can find something called Extrude. Okay, you can also press the D key on your keyboard to allow this to happen. You notice a little icon comes up with a white cube and a yellow cube on top of it. It kind of shows the action of the extrusion. Now what you want to do with this is, I know it's, typically we want to grab onto one of these handles of the X, Y, or Z, but for this what you want to do is drag outside of those handles. So anywhere outside the perimeter, just click and drag, and if you drag out, what happens is it extrudes out from that polygon. So what it's doing is it's making polygons on all four sides around that polygon, and it drags it out, or you could also drag it inward. Okay, so it allows you to have some control over that extrusion. Now again, if you need to, you can hit Shift. If you have the selection tool, hit Shift, and you could select multiple polygons, right? Oh, I didn't want that one selected though. Let's try that again. There we go. That's not what I wanted either. Let's try this again. Alright, so I'm going to click Shift, multiple polygons, and hit the D key for extrude. And now you can extrude all of them at once. Alright? Right, so let's say you have a keyboard or a remote control or something. You've broken up your object into the proper segments, so you have that grid to work with. You can extrude inner or outer of each one of those things all at once. Okay, so the extrusion tool is extremely helpful for modeling some geometrical objects. Let's talk about a few more ways of extruding different objects. I'm just going to deselect those first extrusions. Let's move around the corner here. Another selection tool is called under Structure is called the inner extrude. Okay, this one sometimes can be a little bit confusing, but essentially what you can do with this is you can create a new polygon in the middle of a polygon. Okay, so if you take the extrude inner, what it's going to do is if you click again outside of those arrows and outside the object, if you click and drag it, it's in the interior, it creates another little polygon within the polygon that you've already made. Okay? So let's say you wanted to create a stepped pyramid or something like that. You could extrude the inner, then extrude that outer, and then extrude the inner again. Oops. And extrude the outer. And you can see, you can make a consistent amount of steps just by working within those individual polygons. So that becomes really helpful for geometrical objects that are symmetrical and some of those other modeling types. Additionally, let's go back over here. I keep doing that. I'm not used to this mouse. Sorry, guys. Let's go over here, grab one of these guys. I'm just going to select one of these I've extruded already. Another type of structure extrusion that you can do is the Bevel Tool. And what this does is it's kind of like using the inner extrude and the extrude at the same time. So when you do this, if you have one highlighted and you click and drag, you see what it does is it creates a polygon that's essentially smaller and it drags it outward. So it creates a little bevel on whatever one of those polygons that you have highlighted. All right, see what it's done there? It's created a nice little geometrical bevel along that edge for those forms. And again, with this, you can select multiple polygons all at once to extrude the bevel along that side. Let's talk about one more, the matrix extrude. This one's a crazy one, but I think it's kind of fun to play with sometimes. So the matrix extrude, what this does is it creates steps. Okay, so kind of like how I was creating that little step pyramid, you know, pulling out the polygon, extruding the inner, and pulling it out again. This one will create steps along whatever polygon you have selected. So if I click and drag this out, you see what it's doing? It's creating 8 different steps along that single polygon that I've highlighted. So let's take a look at this a little bit closer. You see there's 8 different polygons, each coming out of that one polygon form. And that relates to the attributes over here. If we look at the attributes down below, the steps, we have 8 steps. Movement, okay, it's going to move along the z-axis, 15.05 inches. Scale is going to change in scale 80%, so each time you drag it out, it's going to be 80% smaller. And there's also a slight rotation on it, 10% rotation. That's why you have that curvature. All right. So let's just change some of those so you can see how that would change. Let's just make this 4 steps. The movement is fine. Well, we can make that 20 instead. Oops. There we go. Scale 80% is pretty good. Let's just make it straight. Instead of rotating, we'll just have it come straight out. And you see what happens now. All right. 4 steps come out. All right. Again, it moves 80% smaller each time and allows you to move along that side. All right. So matrix extrude, you know, can be really helpful. It can also be kind of crazy too. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's just drop a new one in here. You know, if you take a sphere, for example, that has lots of polygons, you make this editable and select the whole thing. Oops, let's go to polygons here. Select all. If you do the matrix extrude on something like this, it's going to be pretty wild. There you go. See that? It's taken each one of those polygons, extruded 8 steps out from it, and made this really complex kind of cushy ball sort of structure. There's lots of polygons, so it's going to render out a little bit slower. But, you know, it's kind of fun to play with. So sometimes, you know, the matrix extrude is good if you want to make something that comes to a small tapered point and you want to have a regular transition. You can use that for some of those forms. Okay, so that's you know, some of the extrusion tools that I think will help out when you're modeling these objects. I'm going to come around now and see what sort of objects you have with you, and we'll talk a little bit about how to start to model those things. And again, those are going to be due at the beginning of class on Monday. So you need to find some lab time between now and Monday to come in here and work on these models. Don't worry about materials quite yet. Again, we'll talk a lot about that on Monday. At the end of class, I'll show a little bit about some basic materials that might help you out just in visualizing the object. But for now, let's just worry about getting the basic shape and dimension and form.